Welcome to West Coast to East Coast, your podcast on the latest news in Canadian immigration and the latest tips on the IELTS, CELPIP, and PTE language proficiency tests. My name is Maria, and I'm a certified Canadian English teacher and a language expert here to help you get the band scores you need.
And my name is Olena Weber, and I'm regulated Canadian immigration consultant. All right, today we're talking about mistakes.
Ooh.
So I will be covering mistakes that immigrants make that would potentially fail their immigration journey on the way to getting their PR in Canada. And Maria, what you will talk about?
I'm going to be talking about the top 5 mistakes that I've noticed that students and test takers make on their journey to getting their CLB9 on their IELTS, CELPIP, and PTE Core test.
All right. I like this topic because, actually I see a lot of times that people would fall into really just common immigrant traps. So I want to go through those mistakes or pitfalls that immigrants possibly would have on the way. So number one is, I would say, not planning their immigration journey. So every immigrant should really go ahead and plan in detail their immigration, and not just immigration like legally wise, like which stream you're going to apply through, what do you need for that, but also other aspects like financial aspects of immigration, like where are you going to live? Are you going to like that city, or like potentially going to like that city? And what I see is that a lot of international students in Canada, actually, they are doing pretty good job with planning their immigration. And the reason why is because international students in Canada, when they're coming, they're already committing financially, right? Because they're paying high tuition fees for Canadian colleges and universities, and they're paying all the expenses, everything, of course, out the pocket. The rent is really high. So I really see that that specific category of immigrants, they tend to research more, because by the end of the day, they want to make sure that it's worthwhile. But there are other categories of immigrants. For example, it's just one of many would be Ukrainians, and I'm Ukrainian, but because Ukrainians were kind of, I don't want to say forced, but, they were forced to leave the country, but they were given opportunity by Canadian government to come to Canada. And a lot of them, they just really didn't, because they were forced to leave their country. They were like, okay, Canada gives this amazing opportunity, but they really didn't have enough time or even just skills to plan immigration journey. And not only immigration wise, meaning that like legally, right? Like which streams are available. A lot of them, I would say majority of them, don't even know what immigration entails and which streams they are like to apply for PR. But also a lot of them are coming not prepared financially, or most importantly, mentally, because they imagine Canada as a one country, and they come and they see completely different country. And like, it's just, they didn't research. So it's important to really plan your journey and adjust your expectations, do your research, and it just would be so beneficial for you in the long run, because you will avoid those surprises.
Well, I can also imagine, how can I say this without sounding like, I think a lot of times people kind of picture Canada to be this like holy grail, or this like perfect place, and nowhere is perfect, right? So I think we have to adjust expectations and to also create realistic plans, right? Like you said about prices and everything, Canada has gotten so expensive, and it's
very expensive.
Very realistic plans when it comes to moving somewhere. Like Vancouver is just really, really expensive.
Yes, absolutely. And for on that note, like for example, specifically for Ukrainians, it's a very specific expectation that they have, which I never realized before. But Ukraine is very urban country, so we have like everything is just there are a lot of cities and everything is very urbanized. And when they come to Canada, they think that it's like everywhere is in New York. kind of environment, but it's not, because Canada essentially is just one big suburb, and it's most of Canada. Like it's not a lot of downtown kind of like Toronto vibe, right? Like only what, like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, like Calgary has like a very little downtown, the same as Edmonton, right? So it's not a lot of that urban environment, which Ukrainians are very surprised by. And they are, quite frankly, just not used to living in suburbs. They're just not used to it. So for them, they say it's like, oh my gosh, like it's so boring, which is, not the worst problem to have. But still, as Europeans, like they need to adjust lifestyle because they're used to going for coffee with their friends every single day.
Right.
And when they stop doing it, like for them, like they, depression, and like a lot of times it leads to like actual mental challenges.
Well, I experienced something called reverse culture shock when I moved back to Canada. I mean, I was born and raised here, but I lived abroad in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil for 8 years working as an English teacher. And I'm not sure who's listening to this, but it's like when I lived there, it was just a very vibrant life with a lot of partying and I had a very rich social life with lots to do, and it was very sunny. And then I had to readjust my expectations coming back to my own home country, because Vancouver is known as like the no fun city.
Really? I didn't know that. To me, Vancouver is a fun city because I see everybody who I know, like I have, family and friends in Vancouver, they always post parties.
It's called that, but like, my lifestyle has also changed. I don't go to bars and nightclubs anymore. So for me, it's fun because my version of fun is going for walks, enjoying nature, spending time with my family. I don't like going to nightclubs and bars anymore. So I think Vancouver is fun now, but maybe for somebody who, I don't know, it's just.
But also it's a social life, I think, because in Brazil, I'm sure, I've never been to, but I want to go. I'm sure social life is very, very rich, the same as in Europe.
Yeah.
But for us, it's so like common and almost just cultural that like after work, like you finish work at 5 p.m. and after work, you just call your friends or you text your friends and you say, okay, like where do we meet for like a quick drink or a coffee or anything, right? Like, and you would just always go out like to a restaurant, just even for a cup of tea, and you would like for a couple hours you would sit, and then you would come home at like 7 or 8 p.m. and then you like spend family time, and that's just what it is. And you never make those plans in advance. You always just do it like right on the spot, right?
Yeah. One thing I remember when I lived abroad, the feeling I had when I woke up, it was a feeling of excitement, because I always thought, who am I going to meet today? Or what am I going to do today? Because my life was so spontaneous. It was never that planned. And I felt like people there lived very day to day. Like it was always like, let's go here, let's go there, let's do this. And it was very fun because I could always make new friends at any moment in my life. And here in Canada, it's very planned. It's like, we're going to do this in 3 weeks from now. And it's very rigid.
Yeah, it's crazy because with my friends, my friends that are here in Canada, like I actually like did their immigration and brought them here, but we know each other from high school. So back in Ukraine, we used to just do those like on the spot plans, like when we just, call each other after university or after work and like, okay, you want to go for a coffee? Now they live here, like we all live here. And now our group chat looks like, okay, let's schedule a girls' night, and then it would be okay. I can do, like May, or I can do June,
July, August.
Like, what is happening? When previously it would be like, are you available in 2 hours from now?
Yeah. Well, like our lives change too, right?
Yes.
People have kids, people have we age, things change, priorities change too. So it's not just where we are in the world, it's also where we are in life.
Yes, that's very true. But, in terms of immigration, it's just like adjusting those expectations, definitely. And like in terms of Canada, like it's really hard to live or function in Canada outside of like downtown, like Toronto or Vancouver, without a car. Like you need a car. Like it's really
Yes,
hard to function without a car
suburbs.
here. Yes. So those things are like if you're not planned and you don't like didn't plan your finances that way, then you would just struggle like and mentally and just even finding a job, right? Because your job can be like 1 hour drive and that's completely normal. Like you're not gonna find a job most likely a walking distance. Like it's just like very like likelihood of that happening is very little. But some people would like literally count on that well, I'll come to Canada and I'll just like have a job walking distance, which in Europe like that's how it works, but here not so much. So adjusting those expectations and planning a strategy, but also like planning your actual immigration path, right? Because if you're coming to Canada, you have like very limited English, you have very limited work experience, then you need to really make sure like that you know which available immigration streams they are. Even if you have a perfect English and perfect work experience, immigrating to Canada right now, applying through any immigration programs are very difficult right now. So you need to make sure you research those. Now, the second thing is not understanding importance of English or French language. That's another very common mistake. Not only like I would say for every single immigrant that comes to Canada, international students, foreign workers, any other, like as I said, like Ukrainians or Iranians under any of the pathways that are coming to Canada, a lot of people, they don't understand how much of significance there is in your immigration journey. It falls on knowledge of English or French. It's just so significant, not only to be able to apply for PR, but also for your life in Canada, right? But specifically because I am immigration consultant, specifically for applying for permanent residency, I would say that like literally, I don't know, 50%, 60% of your success is determined by the level of your English and or French.
Not just your immigration application, but your success in your career afterwards.
Also, yeah, that as well, of course. And those things are also intertwined, right? Like success in your career is also intertwined with success in your immigration, because if let's say like you can't find a job in a proper level to apply for immigration program, and you cannot find that job because you cannot go through the interview because you're lacking those English skills, like that all intertwines. But even as easy as is, like I have consultations all day long when there are perfectly great candidates, but they just cannot score the minimum level for English to be able to go in the pool and be selected. So it's just so significant, and people just underestimate actually the meaning of it. They think, yeah, of course, yes, of course it's important. So like they kind of know it, but they don't understand how much importance there is to knowing English on a good level. Okay, and then the third mistake is not following recent news for immigration, because things change all the time. And honestly, it's just, I was on the different podcast recently, and I was saying they were asking me about all these changes now for international students being capped, and for foreign workers being capped, and all of these changes in immigration. And I said that, look, yeah, of course there are changes, but I think it's similar to the weather in Canada. There is a saying that if you don't like the weather in Canada, just wait 5 minutes. Yeah. And it's the same with immigration. You don't like immigration policies, just wait 5 minutes, because it's just so like changing all the time. And the thing is that if you're not following the news, if you're not aware of what is happening, then you're going to miss opportunities. As simple as that. We've seen many times people missing opportunities to apply for permanent residency when at certain time it was easy, but then it became hard again. And I don't want you to miss any opportunities. So So to follow the news, you can always follow my YouTube channel, my Instagram, and you will be always in the loop of what's happening in the world of immigration. Now, the fourth mistake would be hoping for a miracle. So even though you need to follow the news, but please don't just sit and hope for that miracle program that's going to come and going to magically deliver PR to your door. It's just most likely not going to happen. So it's hoping for a miracle and not actually taking any active steps would be definitely a mistake. And a lot of a lot of international students and foreign workers, they are of that mentality. So international students, a lot of them do hope for a miracle because that miracle already quote unquote already happened in the past, which was in 2021 TR to PR. So just having that experience, they still hope that maybe it will happen the second time, which it may happen or may not. I don't know. It's a 50-50 chance, but it would be silly just to sit around and wait for it, right? But for example, Ukrainian, sorry?
They have to put their future in their hands, right?
Exactly, yes. And, and the work permits are expiring, your statuses are expiring, like your time in Canada is expiring. So if you're just passively waiting for somebody to give you the opportunity, maybe it's going to happen, maybe not. But if you are taking action steps and you're being active, then it's a completely different story. And you definitely will reach the results. You will get your PR if you are being active, you're being involved in your own immigration. So again, about that, like for example, right now, just today in the morning, I was looking at my Ukrainian news, Ukrainians in Canada, and the Ukrainians that are doing petition to the government. So the government does some special immigration program for Ukrainians. And again, it may happen, it may not, but like I'm just assuming that there are a lot of Ukrainians out there that they are just like sitting and waiting for this program for Ukrainians. And it's just, it's a 50-50 chance. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but it's not a good beneficial strategy to just take that passive kind of way and like wait for something to happen, because it's just may not. Okay. And then the fifth mistake is not having a plan B or plan C or plan D for your immigration. What has been happening is that a lot of people are becoming desperate because they only, for example, hoped to immigrate through Express Entry program, and that's it. And now we know in 2024, Express Entry program is being very tough. The scores are very, very high to be invited under Express Entry. So if you don't have a plan B or plan C or plan D, then you kind of are, in a dead end. So you always, when you're planning your immigration, especially from like permanent residency application point of view, when you're planning that path, you need to make sure that you at least have two options that you're going simultaneously through. So usually I would say that, okay, plan your options like Express Entry and provincial nomination, but not just provincial nomination. Know exactly which program and what makes you eligible for that program, and simultaneously try to apply for both, and then see which one works out faster and what way works out just more beneficial for you. But don't just get stuck on a one immigration program, because things are changing. Immigration programs are closing down, they're getting stricter, and maybe some other opportunities opening up. So make sure that you always reassessing your immigration case at least every 6 months. I would say, like, sit down just on your own and think about it. Set some time aside to reassess your own case, or you can always book a consultation with us. But reassessing is very important, and building those plan A, plan B, plan C, those plans. That's exactly what I do every day during consultations. I plan those plans and I visually show it to the client. Okay, like this is what you need to do. This is your option A. This is your option B. So having those options is just super important.
Yeah, I can imagine by sitting down and talking with you that people can see like other options or opportunities that have popped up that they might not have known about.
Yeah, so usually what I like to do on consultations is that I would like share my screen and I would do Word document where I start brainstorming and then organizing their options. And I would literally say like plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. And then there would be some options that are out of the box options that some people would not even think about, but some people would be like, you know what, sure, I'll go become a welder. And it's really good to visually see, okay, what do I need to do now? Like, what is on the table? When you see what's on the table, then you can pick what makes sense the most for you. But first, you need to see what is available, right? So that's what we do. And that's what I suggest everyone does at least once every 6 months while they're still on work permits in Canada.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Okay, what mistakes do you have prepared for us in terms of taking language tests?
So I've got 5 common mistakes that I think that test takers make. Number 1 is using too many linking words. Now, I see this all the time in the writing test. It also happens a little bit on the speaking test, but this mostly happens on the writing test. And when I say linking words or expressions, but mostly linking words, it's words like firstly, secondly, however, furthermore, also, moreover. This happens a lot when students go online and they find templates or they are studying on their own and they are told that they need to use linking words to connect their ideas. Yes, it is important to use linking words because it's part of your assessment to be able to use linking words. Examiners are looking for your ability to connect your ideas. Why? You want to create flow. You want to create a sense of flow so that you can connect your ideas in a natural way. But when you use too many, it becomes unnatural. It becomes awkward. If you think about reading something in your first language, whoever writes something, or if you were to write something in your first language, nobody would put that many linking words. It's kind of like putting too much salt in your food, right? So like Olena, if we're reading something in like Ukrainian or something, like we can't put too many of those words, right? Because otherwise when you're reading it, every single sentence starts with furthermore, moreover. Yeah. Also.
No, it's really funny because as you're talking about it, I remember my very first IELTS exam 13 years ago, and that's exactly what I did. I used a lot of linking words, and I would use linking words. I scored 6 in my writing in IELTS back then, and then I would use the words like nevertheless, and then it would be on one hand or another hand, however, but it would be so many of them.
Yeah, and it's good to use them, but you have to use them correctly. Like they have to be used correctly, first of all. If you're using them the wrong way, it doesn't help. It goes against the point. It goes against your whole purpose of using them. But you have to use them just the right amount. Like I always refer to it like salt. Like it's like if you have a plate of food, if there's no salt, it's gross. And if you have too much salt, it's also gross. Like you have to have just the right amount of salt. And that's the same thing with linking words. It has to be just the right amount so that the reader goes, oh, okay, this is where the writer is going. The whole point of a linking word or an expression is to guide the listener, to guide the reader so they know where you are going. It shouldn't make the person feel like they're driving a car and you're changing gears like all of a sudden way too many times. So using too many linking words is no bueno, not good. Number 2, trying to use really advanced vocabulary that the test takers just don't have full control of. So what happens, I see a lot of my students or test takers is that they're trying to show off, like trying to use really fancy academic vocabulary, and they try to like shoehorn or like stuff these fancy words into into a sentence. But it might not be appropriate to the context. It might be like inaccurate, awkward, or just not the right word for the context. And then they use it inaccurately. And what happens is it actually causes the sentence to be incorrect, and it backfires. So what I always tell my students is that don't use a word or a collocation or anything unless you know it's 100% accurate. Accuracy is more important than like trying to use something, because the test takers are being tested on their range, so what they know how to use, and the accuracy. It's not just what they know, it's can they use it accurately as well.
Yes, you know, it reminds me, I don't know if you remember, but in Friends episode, it was episode when Joey was writing a letter of support, and it was supposed to be very, like sincere letter. And he kept using words, like suggested words. Yeah. And then it would become like, my heart is full of love would become like, my blood pumping muscle is full of like, but it was like the whole letter like that. So that's what it is. And he doesn't understand what it means. So he thinks he's fancy, but
yeah, it's the same kind of concept. Sometimes I read things and I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. like I'm reading it, like I'll give you an example, like progenitor. It could be like a synonym for like a very like academic scientific word for parents, but like people would never speak like that.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Or like I made a very simple reel the other day about the word opine. Opine is like, opine means it's like a synonym for opinion, like to give my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go on the dictionary, opine, to opine, it means to give your opinion. So you can say like old-fashioned English, like Shakespeare time, somebody would say, I opine we should get some coffee. Like I don't even really know how to use that properly in a sentence, because like nobody talks like that. Nobody. Like English from like, I don't know, 1800 something. And a lot of test takers say that, like, I opine that. And it's just like, nobody talks like this. Especially on the CELPIP test, you're being tested for like real life English. Can you speak with like how you would speak to your boss, how you would speak to your friends? And if you go to your boss and you say, I opine, they're going to probably be like, this person's kind of a jerk, because they're trying to sound smart. Like if you try to sound smart than the person you're talking to, you kind of sound arrogant, you know? Yes. Like you're trying to be smarter than them. The person's going to be like, this person's kind of rude. Like you have to be appropriate for the context. So anyway, so that's a tip. So try to use vocabulary that's appropriate for the context, appropriate for the tone of voice, and that's not too advanced for your level. Use what you can have full control of. Number 3, I've mentioned this time and time again, but using memorized expressions, not good for any test. Even the PTE Core test, which is tested by a computer, does not like memorized expressions. So memorized expressions are sentences or pre-prepared responses that you can, or that a test taker can literally memorize and take to the test, and they can apply it to any question. So it has nothing to do with the content of the question, of the prompt. It has nothing to do with the actual topic of the question. It's just a sentence or something that they can take with them to the test and apply it to any prompt that they get. They stand out quite a lot because they are not relevant to the topic. And usually there's a big mismatch between the actual sentence that they are using and the accuracy of the grammar of the rest of the response. It stands out immediately. So memorized expressions are a big no-no, and usually test takers get disqualified when they use them. Number 4, going off topic. A lot of test takers don't know this, but when you write even a sentence that is off topic or irrelevant to the topic or the idea, the main theme, the main topic in the question, test takers can lower their band score quite substantially. all of your ideas or all of their ideas should be relevant to the question's main theme, main topic. So if the writing prompt is about the environment, all of your ideas should be about the environment or about your arguments. You shouldn't go off talking about sushi unless there's something about sushi that's relevant to the environment. But everything has to be relevant. Your arguments have to be relevant. Otherwise, you'll start to lose points. So going off topic is huge. And this happens very easily when students don't know how to plan. When they don't know how to plan their responses and organize their responses appropriately. And this is what we teach in our classes. We teach 5 easy steps to plan their responses in class. And the last common mistake, number 5, very similar to one of yours, underestimating the test, which is similar to what you were talking about, underestimating their plan, not having a plan. Underestimating the exam, I think, is a big one because a lot of people don't realize that it does take about 200 hours to improve your English proficiency, to go from one English proficiency level to the next. And yes, there are test strategies that every test taker has to learn. Everyone has to learn test strategies, but the test taker still has to improve their English proficiency level. And if somebody is at like a pre-intermediate English proficiency level, like a CLB 4 or 5, they still need to improve their English proficiency level to get to a CLB 9. If someone's at a CLB 4 or 5 or even a 6, test strategies are not going to get them to a CLB 9 in a month. Going from like a CLB 6 to a 9 is going to take maybe a year, 6 months at least. It's going to take some time to go from a CLB 6 to a 9. It's a big jump from CLB 8 to a 9.
Well, one thing I want to say is that unfortunately, but what happens a lot is the combination of our 2 mistakes when I really do see when people underestimate the significance of the English test or French test, that, it really makes so much difference in your immigration and ability to apply for PR. And at the same time, they underestimate the test itself. So they don't prepare properly. They don't understand how long it takes to prepare or how long it takes to, get their level up or learn strategies. Even if they already have a good CLB 9, which a lot of immigrants honestly do have a very high proficiency generally, but they still need to put in time and work to learning those test strategies. And if they underestimate the importance of the test and they underestimate the importance of preparation and the test itself, then it's just a recipe for a failure. And that's why I see so many times a person with a perfectly great English and I see their test results and it would be literally like CLB 7. And I would be right away, I would be able to say that like, you didn't prepare, did you? And they're like, well, I did like 3 days before. And I'm like, well, this is waste of money though. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Because like I've said in other episodes, you can always go back to our podcast and listen to other episodes. The test strategies is about half of your test result. The other half is your English. So it's a combination of the 2. Test takers have to prepare with a mixture of both. Yes, test strategies it's mandatory to understand how to prepare for the test, but it's also like there's no way around it. There are no shortcuts. Students still have to learn and improve their overall English proficiency, and that includes grammar, learning grammar tenses, learning how to write complete sentences, improving their pronunciation. So preferably studying with the native teacher to improve their pronunciation. Listening skills, reading skills. So that can be improved by listening to podcasts, TV shows that they like, TV series, reading articles, actively on a daily basis, immersing themselves in Canadian English on a day-to-day basis, just to really start improving their overall English. And I say this from a place of compassion and empathy because I also had to learn another language as an adult. I know it takes time. I don't think I learned Portuguese fluently for about 3 years. It took me a while because I lived in Brazil, and I remember my first 3 years, it was hard. It was hard to work and commute, like to actually understand people like on the bus and in the supermarket and everything. I was like, wow, like it was not easy. And if I had to take a test, I don't think I would have scored a CLB 9 for at least 3 years in.
Wow. Yeah, it is a hard work, and but it is super helpful, as you said, like not only for immigration but in real life, because I feel like I would be very feeling like out of place if I was not understanding like major things like bank or like a bus or those kind of life situations. So yeah, it's very important not only for immigration but just for your life in Canada.
Exactly. So those are my 5 common mistakes that I notice test takers make all the time. There are a lot more, of course. If you'd like to learn more mistakes that people can make and ways that we can improve them, let me know by getting in touch with us at industrycanada.com. I'd be more than happy to help you. And of course, Olena can help you by creating an amazing plan for your PR journey in Canada.
Yes, if you do require any immigration assistance, you can go on our website and book a consultation. Well, thank you so much, Maria, for today.
Awesome. We'll see you next week with us at West Coast to East Coast.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.